Hello, and welcome back to JP's Retro World. I am your man, JP. So last time we covered Wrestlemania 17, which took place in Houston, Texas, on April 1st. But the very next year was an international Wrestlemania because it took place in Toronto, Canada, on March 17th. That's my sister's birthday. Uh, so, Skydome in Toronto, Canada, WrestleMania 18. It was 2002. At this point, like one of the big matches here, because Vince McMahon had decided to bring back the NWO because the year before, Shane McMahon had just bought WCW. WCW went out of business. Shane bought it, and they acknowledged it the year before. But this year, they actually had some former WCW stars, like they had the NWO guys. They had Booker T. They had Eddie Guerrero and Perry Saturn and Dean Malenko and all these guys that were known as WCW stars. But now they were in the WWF, which at this point, I don't think it had yet become WWE. I think it was still WWF at this point. But nevertheless, this is the second WrestleMania held at this venue. The first one was WrestleMania 6, Hogan versus the Warrior. So, anyway, IC title on the line right off the bat. Rob Van Dam, taking on William Regal. Regal once again opening the show, but Rob Van Dam wins the match, wins the title. So then we had a European title match. DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, another former WCW guy, taking on Christian, a Canadian superstar, but DDP won that match. Okay, so then we had, and actually, there was a couple segments here where either Drowning Pool or Saliva performed, and I really didn't care. I really didn't care about either one of those bands, so those really didn't do anything for me. But we had Goldust versus Maven for the hardcore title. Now, at this point, they were doing this thing where they had said that the hardcore title would be on the line 24/7. So basically, if you're the hardcore champion, you have to be looking over your shoulders all the time because at any point somebody could attack you. And if somebody attacks you and they get a 3 count, then they win the title. So they were doing this thing where Goldust versus Maven, neither one of them won because Spike Dudley came in at the end, stole a 3 count, ran away, and became champion. And at several points during the night, the title changed hands between like the Hurricane and Mighty Molly and silly stuff. Anyway, so then Drowning Pool saying, like I said, I didn't care. And like I said, there was a backstage brawl where the Hurricane wins the hardcore title, and it's just, I don't know, stuff I didn't care about. So then we had Kurt Angle versus Kane, in which Kurt Angle was victorious. He defeated Kane. And there was a backstage brawl with the Hurricane and the Godfather. Hurricane was backstage with all the Godfather's ladies or whatever. And he was in their locker room. They did this sexual innuendo stuff where it's just kind of crass. And anyway. Okay, so then there was a no DQ match. The Undertaker versus Ric Flair. Now, the story behind this match was Ric Flair was part owner of the WWF, but at the same time he had kind of been feuding with The Undertaker. The Undertaker challenged him to a match. Initially he said, no, I'm not going to fight you. But then The Undertaker attacked Arn Anderson, Ric Flair's best friend. Then he started attacking Ric Flair's son, David Flair, who at the time was training to be a wrestler. So Ric Flair finally said, fine, I'll fight you. But then the WWF board told him, okay, well, if you go through with this match, then you're no longer part of this board. So Ric Flair said, well, I don't care. I have to fight. The Undertaker. So he got kicked off the board in WWF. Then Vince McMahon made it a no DQ match. But the Undertaker won. Okay, and then there was Booker T versus Edge, in which Edge won because Edge is the WWF guy, and they're not going to have a WCW guy beat a WWF guy so fresh into WWF winning the war over WCW. They're just not going to have a big guy like Edge for the WWF lose to a guy like Booker T, because Booker T was the WCW guy. Even though the guys that worked for WWF at the time, the producers will say, no, that's not the way it was. But to us fans, that's the way it appeared. That they were just having all the WWF guys just wipe out all the former WCW talent. That's the way it looked to us. Anyway. Yeah, another backstage brawl for the hardcore title. Just silly, stupid stuff. But then, one of the big matches, Scott Hall of the NWO taking on Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, of course, Steve Austin is going to win. And, of course, he's going to beat both Scott Hall and Kevin Nash because he's freaking Stone Cold Steve Austin. And these are both NWO guys. And we don't like the NWO because they tried to put us out of business. So we're going to make them look foolish by making both of them look like fools against Stone Cold. Stupid. Stupid, in my opinion. So anyway, yeah, there's a fatal four-way tag team match. Bunch of stupid teams. Billy and Chuck ended up winning tag titles anyway, blah, blah, blah. But then there was the match that I was most interested in. And it was The Rock versus Hollywood Hulk Hogan. A match of the ages. Icon versus legend. So, The Rock won the match, but Hulk Hogan ended up turning babyface. And he got all of his fans back. And at the end, Hulk was attacked by Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. The Rock came in and saved Hogan. So Hogan left the NWO and turned back into just red and yellow Hulk Hogan again. Which is, I think, what people really wanted to see. And he ended up having one last run as the WWF champion when he beat Triple H. So, anyway. Then there was a triple threat women's match, which Jazz versus Lita versus Trish. And I kind of feel sorry for these ladies because how are they going to follow The Rock versus Hogan? How are they going to keep the audience entertained after a match like that? Because after that, the audience is like, oh, ladies match? Great. Because it's, The Rock versus Hogan. Anyway, but in the main event, Chris Jericho, the first ever undisputed heavyweight champion, would defend against a returning Triple H. Now, Triple H had been out with an injury for several months. He had tore his quad, and he was out with an injury. But he returned at the Royal Rumble and won, and then ended up challenging Chris Jericho for the title. And spoiler alert, Triple H won because he's the returning champion. So anyway, yeah, that's WrestleMania 18. It was certainly better than the previous two WrestleManias, but there was still stuff on it that I didn't care. I had no emotional investment whatsoever. I kind of was interested in The Rock versus Hogan. I understand why they had The Rock win, because he was the younger star, and he was the guy that, had established himself as one of the tippy-top guys. And Hogan was kind of passing the torch to The Rock, which proves that people that say, oh, Hogan didn't want to put anybody over, that's not true. Hogan put people over. He did. So, anyway, but yeah, that was WrestleMania 18. And that's going to do it for this video. So if you are new, go ahead and please like and subscribe. And I will definitely see you next time.